I'm Amanda, 32, the quiet one who held my family's house together. Sunday dinner smelled of roasted chicken and cinnamon rolls, but the warmth was not for me. My parents beamed at my brother, then turned to me and said, "You're a disgrace, 2 days to leave." I stayed silent, but not empty-handed. The clink of silverware still rings in my ears. Plates passed laughter circling the table like a current I couldn't enter. My father's glass struck the table like a gavel cutting through the chatter. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. And if you've ever been pushed aside by your own family, hit subscribe. You'll want to see where this goes. On the buffet sat the pale blue dish set I'd bought last Christmas. My mother had called it too fancy then, but tonight she laid it out proudly for my brother, smiling at him as if he were royalty. I sat at the far end, reaching for bread, while they leaned in to catch every detail of his latest big break. I mentioned a client project no one looked up. My father poured wine for my brother and let my glass sit empty. The room glowed with warm light, but a cold draft ran under my chair. The chandelier above the one I'd chosen and installed sparkled over their heads like a crown I wasn't allowed to wear. My brother's stories about New York spilled into the air, promises of deals and successes. I had heard them all before. No one asked about the weekend I'd spent sanding the floors or the nights I worked late to pay the bank. Then the sound that silenced everything, my father's glass slammed down a sharp crack echoing off the hardwood. Forks froze midair. "You're a disgrace," he said flatly. 2 days to leave. This house belongs to your brother now. My mother looked down at her napkin, twisting it until it tore. My brother's grin flickered, but he said nothing. I swallowed hard, the taste of cinnamon turning to metal. My fingers brushed the smooth edge of the table I had refinished, a silent tally of all I'd built here. I pushed my plate away and stood. No argument, no tears. Just a quiet nod as my eyes swept the chandelier one last time. Then I walked to my room, the murmur of their conversation resuming behind me, like nothing had happened. But in my head, a different kind of silence was forming, one that moved like a plan. I closed my bedroom door and leaned against it, listening to the faint scrape of chairs and low voices drifting up from downstairs. The pale blue walls I had painted 3 summers ago caught the last gold of evening, soft and calm against the heat building in my chest. My phone buzzed with a notification, but I ignored it. I sat on the edge of my bed, fingers tracing the seams of the quilt my grandmother had left me, and tried to steady my breathing. They had spoken their verdict as if it were routine, as if my years of work meant nothing. Down the hall, the picture frames I'd hung rattled slightly as someone moved in the kitchen. I thought of the new chandelier I'd installed, the curtains I'd custom-ordered to match the cream rug, the washing machine I'd hauled in after the old one died. Each image flickered through my mind like a quiet ledger. In their eyes, it was just a house. In mine, it was a lifetime of weekends, late nights, and paychecks poured into wood and paint. I picked up my notepad from the nightstand, the one I used for sketches, and flipped to a blank page. Without thinking, I began to list every item I had bought: gray sofa, flat-screen TV, washing machine, cream curtains. My handwriting stayed steady even as my throat tightened. A quiet plan was forming beneath the surface of my calm face. Outside my window, dusk settled over Missoula, the streetlights flicking on one by one. The scent of roasted chicken still clung to my sweater. I looked at my reflection in the darkened glass, not the daughter who fixed everything, but someone different, someone ready. The sound of my brother's laughter drifted up faintly, full of entitlement. I closed the notebook and placed it carefully on the nightstand. In that moment, I didn't feel small. I felt still. I could almost see the path ahead, like the faint outline of a blueprint waiting to be drawn. My silence at dinner wasn't surrender. It was space. Space to breathe, to think, to act. I reached for my phone, at last opened my contacts, and hovered over Lindsay's name without pressing call. Not yet. I would speak when it mattered. For now, I sat quietly in my room, the pale blue walls holding my secrets, and listened as the house I had rebuilt buzzed with voices that no longer had power over me. Morning light spilled across the kitchen counters I had chosen and paid for turning the granite a soft gold. I stood barefoot on the cool tile mug in hand, staring at the envelope I'd picked up with yesterday's mail. It was addressed to my parents, a bank logo stamped in the corner. I set it aside, my fingers lingering on the edge. My phone buzzed again. Lindsay's name lit the screen. "You okay?" she had texted. I called her instead. As the line clicked, I glanced at the pale blue curtains swaying over the sink, another of my quiet contributions. "Last night," I began. My voice stayed level as I told her about dinner, my father's ultimatum, my mother's silence. Lindsay's tone sharpened. "Something's off," she said. "Check if there's anything tied to your name. Loans, accounts, anything." I ended the call and looked around the kitchen. Every drawer handle, every tile held a memory of my hands installing it. The thought of them handing this house to my brother made the room feel smaller. I set my mug down and climbed the attic stairs, the wooden steps creaking under my weight. Dust floated in the shaft of light from the single window, making the boxes glow like old secrets. I pulled a cardboard box labeled bills toward me. Envelopes spilled across the floor, most of them utilities. Under a pile of receipts sat an unmarked folder. My stomach tightened as I opened it. Bank statements, loan documents, none in my name at first. Then one letter addressed to my parents referencing a $60,000 home equity loan. The date was recent. My heart thudded once hard. I flipped to the last page and froze. My name in bold, my social security number, my signature, except it wasn't mine. The loops of the A were wrong, the tail of the D too short. A forgery, clumsy but convincing enough for a bank. The loan tied to the house I had saved 3 years ago. My parents and Colt listed as co-borrowers, but me as the primary. If it defaulted, I was on the hook. Dust settled on my hair as I knelt on the attic floor, papers trembling in my hands. I sat back on the attic floor, the papers spread around me like a crime scene. My hands stopped shaking as a strange calm settled over me. They hadn't just taken my money, they had taken my name. I snapped photos of each page and sent them to Lindsay. The reply came within a minute. "This is identity theft," she said over the phone, her voice firm. "We can fight this, Amanda, but we need more proof. Check the house for any paperwork, loan documents, bank statements, anything." I wiped the dust from my palms and dug deeper into the box. Another letter from the bank confirmed the loan's payments were behind. The date matched the month Colt had stumbled back from New York, all talk of big deals gone. It wasn't hard to piece together. He'd failed, needed cash, and my parents had helped him by using me without a word. I gathered the documents, stacking them carefully. In the quiet of the attic, I could hear the faint hum of the washing machine downstairs, the one I had bought, and felt a flicker of resolve. They thought I'd leave quietly, let Colt claim the house I'd fought for. But now I had proof, and I wasn't going anywhere without a fight. By noon, I was back in the kitchen, spreading the papers across the counter I'd installed. The sunlight caught the embossed bank logo. I grabbed my notepad from the night before and began listing every item I'd bought for this place: gray sofa, flat-screen TV, washing machine, cream curtains. My handwriting stayed neat, deliberate. A knock at the door startled me. Diane Burke, our neighbor, stood there holding a plate of cookies, her gray hair pulled back, eyes sharp with concern. "You okay, Amanda?" she asked, stepping inside. I hesitated, then told her about my father's ultimatum, leaving out the loan for now. Diane frowned, setting the cookies down. "I remember you painting the porch last summer," she said softly. "You've done so much for this house." Her words hit hard, not because they were new, but because they were true. At 2:00 sharp, the mover's truck rolled into the driveway, its engine humming like a quiet drumbeat. 3 men in navy shirts stepped out, clipboards in hand. From the porch, I watched them unload blankets and straps their boots thudding on the steps I had painted last spring. Inside the house looked strange, without the hum of family chatter, only the echo of empty rooms and my own measured footsteps. I pointed out the sticky notes marking what was mine: the gray sofa, the flat-screen TV, the washing machine, the cream curtains. They nodded without questions, lifting each piece with practiced care. Sunlight poured through the bare windows, highlighting patches of wall where pictures had hung. With every item carried out, the house shed another layer of my history, yet I felt lighter, not sad. While the movers worked, I called Lindsay to confirm our plan. "Identity theft and financial fraud," she said, her voice steady. "The loan documents are solid evidence, and your history of paying for the house strengthens our case. We'll demand the loan be voided and seek damages. I asked what would happen to the house. If the loan defaults, she explained, the bank could foreclose. Your family might lose it entirely. I paused, picturing my parents and Colt scrambling. Part of me wanted to feel bad, but I didn't. They'd made their choice when they forged my name. I told Lindsay to move forward. No hesitation. Outside, the movers loaded the truck. Inside, the living room felt like a stage set struck between acts, the walls bare without my curtains, the air hollow without my sofa. Diane poked her head in again, eyes widening at the sight. "You're really doing this," she said, a mix of awe and admiration. I managed a small smile. "They thought I'd just walk away," I replied quietly. "They're about to learn I don't break that easily." Diane squeezed my hand and promised to check in later. The door clicked shut behind her, leaving me with the rhythm of boxes moving out and the faint scent of wood polish rising from the floorboards. By the time the last box was strapped into the truck, the front door swung open hard enough to rattle the hinges. Colt stood there, tie-loosened cheeks, flushed. His eyes swept the stripped room. "What the hell did you do?" he barked. "This is my house now. Where's the furniture?" I stayed where I was, arms crossed. "Your house," I said softly. "I took what's mine. The things I paid for." His jaw tightened. "Dad said you're supposed to be gone." I reached into my bag and held up the loan agreement, the forged signature glaring under the sunlight. "I know about the $60,000 loan. The one you and Mom and Dad took out in my name." For a heartbeat, his face froze before recovering into a smirk. "You're making this up," he said. "You're just mad because I'm back and you're out." I stepped closer, papers steady in my hand. "I have proof. Finn at the bank sent me the agreement. Your name's on it too, but I'm the one they'll come after if it defaults. You really thought I wouldn't find out?" The smirk faltered, replaced by a flicker of panic. He grabbed his phone, dialing our parents. "You're going to hear from Mom and Dad about this," he said, voice rising. "You can't just strip the house and walk away." I laughed once, sharp and cold. "Walk away? I'm protecting myself. You and our parents committed identity theft. I'm not letting you take what I built." The doorbell rang, slicing through the tension. Henry, our neighbor, stepped inside his flannel shirt, neat eyes darting between us. "Everything okay, Amanda?" he asked calmly. I nodded, keeping my gaze on Colt. "Just having a chat with my brother." Henry's brow furrowed. "I heard the movers earlier," he said. "You've put your heart into this place. I saw you fixing the porch, hauling that TV in. Whatever's going on, I'm on your side." Colt scoffed. "This doesn't concern you, old man." Henry didn't budge. "It does when I see someone getting pushed around," he replied, staring Colt down. Colt's face reddened, his hands clenched. "You're pathetic, Amanda?" he hissed. "Always playing the victim, thinking you're the hero." I took one quiet step forward. "If I'm so pathetic, why did you need my name to get that loan? Why did you come crawling back to Missoula when your big dreams failed?" Colt flinched, his bravado cracking. His phone buzzed with our dad's name. He turned away, ranting into the receiver. "She took everything, Dad. The whole damn house is empty." I stood unmoved, the papers steady in my hand, while Henry leaned closer and whispered, "Don't let him bully you." I nodded once. Colt hung up, eyes blazing, muttering, "This isn't over," before storming out, the slam of the door echoing through the bare room. Weeks later, the court hearing unfolded in a small wood-paneled room that smelled faintly of varnish and old paper. I sat at the plaintiff's table beside Lindsay, her folder neatly stacked with exhibits. Across from us, my parents sat, stiff eyes down, while Colt fidgeted with his tie, the swagger long gone. The judge, a gray-haired man with glasses perched low, listened quietly as Lindsay laid out the evidence: the forged loan agreement, the bank statements, Diane's notarized affidavit about my work on the property. Each word landed like a nail being driven into wood. Their lawyer, a weary man in an ill-fitting suit, tried to argue that I had agreed to the loan, but the forged signature glared from the screen. Bank records confirmed years of my payments. The room stayed hushed except for Lindsay's clear, measured voice and the occasional shuffle of papers. I kept my hands folded, my breathing steady, watching my parents avoid my gaze. Colt stared at the table as if the grain might save him. When the judge finally spoke, his tone was firm and unhurried. "The loan is voided," he said. Ms. Amanda is cleared of any obligation. The defendants will pay court fees and damages for emotional distress." A murmur rippled through the room. My chest rose, but I stayed silent. No smile, no tears. This was not a victory to flaunt. The house tied to the unpaid loan would be sold to settle the debt. I didn't look at my parents. I stood, gathered my coat, and walked out, Lindsay following. Outside, the Montana air bit at my face. Snowmelt trickled along the courthouse steps. Lindsay allowed herself a rare smile. "You won, Amanda," she said softly. "They can't touch you now." I nodded, the weight of years lifting but leaving a hollow space behind. The house I had fought for would be gone, but it wasn't mine anymore, not after what they had done. I pulled my scarf tighter and stepped into the sunlight, feeling the chill break against my skin. Weeks passed, and word drifted back through Missoula's tight-knit circles. The bank had foreclosed and auctioned the house for just enough to cover the loan. My parents and Colt moved into a cramped apartment on the edge of town. Their savings drained, their pride fractured. Colt took a low-paying job at a local car dealership, his New York dreams long gone. My parents, once quick to brag about him, now struggled with utility bills. Calls started coming the day after the ruling. First, my mother's voicemail, shaky: "Amanda, how could you do this to us? We're your family." Then my father, sharp with blame: "You've ruined us. You didn't have to take it this far." I listened, my chest tight, but my resolve intact. They had used my name, my trust, to secure a loan they never intended to repay. I deleted the messages one by one and blocked their numbers. Colt tried calling from a new number, a week later, his message swinging between anger and desperation. "You think you're better than us," he said. "You'll regret this." I blocked him too. The silence that followed felt like freedom. Lindsay checked in regularly, making sure I was okay. "You did what you had to," she told me over coffee. "They made their choices." I nodded, knowing she was right. Months later, sunlight streamed through the window of my new apartment near the Clark Fork River. The gray sofa I had fought to keep sat against the wall, morning light catching its soft fabric. Navy curtains framed the glass, and the washing machine hummed in a small utility closet, a quiet victory. My days at the interior design firm filled with sketches and color swatches, each project a chance to build something new. I had poured years into a family that took me for granted. Now I poured that energy into myself. Loyalty, I had learned, doesn't mean letting people walk over you. Protecting your worth means setting boundaries even when it hurts. I wasn't the daughter who fixed everything anymore. I was Amanda, building a life on my terms, and that was enough. The story closes like a door gently swinging shut. Amanda walks forward, her steps quiet but sure, leaving behind a house heavy with echoes. In the stillness, she has found her own voice. Sometimes strength isn't in shouting, but in choosing to step away, carrying only what's truly yours.